I want to say this for the people who are holding these HR director positions, these HR manager positions. You need to give people a shot.
It's not about micromanagement or telling you what to do. It's about elevating you and helping you identify where you're best suited.
A lot of times we hire people and we put them where we need them, but it's not their strength and their strong suit. And it's a failure, I believe, on us as leaders.
And that nursing school doesn't teach them everything that they need to know, or it's not going to expose them to everything. There's no way we should be silent. There's no way we should be invisible. And there's no reason for us to suffer and work alone and struggle.
Ready to shatter the status quo and unleash your leadership potential? Sick of the same old tired leadership advice? Well, get ready to disrupt your thinking and transform your leadership skills. Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast that's about to challenge everything you thought you knew about leadership. Join DJ as he dives into the trenches with industry trailblazers, exploring the real issues leaders face today. From innovative strategies to proven techniques, we'll uncover the secrets to taking your leadership from good to great. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to conquer new heights. Join the movement and let's redefine leadership together. This is Sound Leadership with DJ. Leadership Redefined.
Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast dedicated to exploring the essence of leadership. Here, we're all about connecting you with visionary thinkers and trailblazers who have reshaped the landscape of leadership. Every episode is a new adventure where we walk side by side with leaders who have achieved remarkable success. We trace their journey from humble beginnings to leadership prominence, uncovering the challenges they faced and the wisdom they've collected along the way. In this episode, we are thrilled to feature my good friend, Dr. Let me say that for the people in the back, Dr. Kimberly Madison, a multifaceted leader and healthcare influencer. As a podcast host, a writer, an author, and nurse entrepreneur, Dr. Madison founded the Mahogany Dermatology to share her journey on becoming a dermatology nurse practitioner. Her work aims to not only provide resources, but also to serve as a beacon for other aspiring dermatology NPs. With her rich background in healthcare, combined with her passion for writing and entrepreneurship, Dr. Madison brings invaluable insights into the intersection of medical practice, business leadership, and community engagement. So join us as we sit down and talk candidly with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and community influencers, and other leading figures. They're here to share their stories, strategies, and pivotal moments defining their leadership journey. So whether you're refining your leadership skills or just starting out on your path to leadership, Sound Leadership with DJ promises enriching content tailored just for you. And we want you to stay engaged with our community and stay up to date on our latest podcast. And you can do so by following us on LinkedIn and YouTube at Sound Leadership with DJ, where we share convenient behind-the-scenes posts and photos of episodes just like this. We want you to also ensure that you stay in the loop by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast platforms. That includes Apple Music, Alexa, iHeart, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button. Now it's time to be prepared to embark on this journey of inspiration, empowerment, and transformational leadership with Dr. Madison. This is Sound Leadership with DJ. Welcome, Dr. Madison.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. What do you call me, a healthcare influencer? That's a first.
Listen, I'm speaking it into existence. We know who you are. We know what you're doing. You're out here making waves. We're going to call it like we see it, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here.
So, I did that intro, but it holds no candle to who you really are. You are a healthcare influence. You are a nursepreneur. You are a doctoral prepared nurse. But those are my words. In the words of you, tell us who you are.
Oh, man, me and my mom talk about this all the time. Who are you? So it's like a quick little story. So I always think it's so important when someone asks me who I am to talk about where I come from, which is my parents. My dad's from Jersey. My mom's from New York. They met and fell in love at Northeastern University in Boston. And then my dad joined the military. And I grew up hearing all about Boston. I went my own Boston dreams, which I was able to do after I got my first bachelor's. So my first bachelor's was in biology, and then I didn't have great grades, and I needed to boost up my GPA. And so I went to Tufts and did their biomedical engineering program. That was to see if I really had what it takes, right? So while I was there, I was working at Children's Hospital Boston, recruiting patients for research. In order to recruit those patients, I had to talk to the nurse. And so every day I'm talking to the nurse, I'm listening to them, I'm seeing how they move, I'm hearing how they talk. And before I go to work, I'm watching ER. And for some reason, every episode was around the nurse, because they would rotate the characters, but at this particular time, it was always about the nurse. And it just got me really curious. And before that, I was trying to be a dentist. But then I started to see that profession is pretty lonely. And so long story short, looked into nursing, decided that whatever I'm going to do, I want to be at the top so fewer people can tell me no. So I looked into a doctorate program before I ever even picked in a bachelor's program. And the only two schools that had what I wanted were Duke and GW. And so after Boston, I went to Memphis because I used to watch the Neelys. A Black couple in Memphis had a cooking show. They were madly in love on TV. And I said, I want to go there. Maybe I'll also find someone and be madly in love. So I went to University of Memphis for my bachelor's in nursing. Love, as random as that decision was, really one of my favorite places I ever lived. The people there are just so kind. And it was my first time really being part of a community, really seeing how my presence could influence a community. And then from there, I went to GW. I mean, not GW, Georgetown, because they had a nurse residency program. The culture there is really to promote your education to continue on. So the culture is kind of do your 2 years and go back. And so at that time, the plan was to do the BSN, to do the DMP PhD dual program.
Wow.
I know. But at this point, a couple of things happened. One, I fell in love. And two, I had already spent my whole adulthood on education. And those two things were going to take up 100% of my time. And I didn't really want to do that anymore. And so I took an extra year to decide, because at this point I was also involved in committees in the hospital. So now I'm seeing beyond the bedside. And so my whole understanding perspective of healthcare shifted and changed. So I needed an extra year to really decide, okay, what am I going to do with this information? Decide to go with the DMP because it would allow me to do all the things I love: teach, be involved in research, and still see patients. And so I did the BSN and DMP program at GW that ended in 22. During that time, we had the whole pandemic, started being a travel nurse, started learning about financial literacy, realizing my passion for entrepreneurship, but I'm also working in school. And so I can only really listen and learn these things at a little bit in pieces, right? And I was like, man, if I graduate and jump into this MP role, I'm still not going to have time to learn about these other things. So unconventionally, I took an extra year off, which I call my working sabbatical, stayed at the bedside so I could have those 3 days and have the rest of the time to continue to explore these other interests that I have. And at that time, I really wasn't even sure if I was going to stay in healthcare, because all the entrepreneurs I was listening to, they weren't in healthcare. And it wasn't until, so the BSN and DMP program, I actually graduated in the middle of that and got my master's, but I wasn't expecting that. So I wasn't planning to shift right before a doctorate program that's unpredictable and leave what I knew was comforting. I had seniority at my job. I had the schedule I needed. It was predictable. I needed predictability when I was entering something that was unknown. So again, another unconventional decision, decided to stay. But I still needed my foot in the community. So I became the student rep for the Nurse Practitioner Association of DC. That's the puppy. He always has to make an announcement. And then I joined this little organization on Instagram called DMPs of Color. So you really couldn't join, but what I did was I was helping with the program committee. And at this time we were doing virtual events. So our virtual commencement, and then we had our virtual conference. And now you guys know me on social media, but back then I wasn't really out here publicly. So now it's going to make so much sense. But then I was the tech person because I was afar, and so I was helping with that. And so through my relationship with Danielle, I follow her, I see what she's doing. She talks about how she just did this interview with Dr. Sandra Pagenta, the host of the Dr. Nurse podcast. So I go listen to Danielle's interview. Then I scroll through the other titles and I see that this guy made $450,000 in a year as a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur. Everyone's listening to that episode, myself included. And that's when I learned all the opportunities in healthcare with my education, with my expertise, so I didn't have to leave healthcare. And so the founder of that, Justin Allen, he literally changed my life. And so since then, I've been on this trek for entrepreneurship, got my DMP, finished my little sabbatical. During the sabbatical year, I explored a bunch of things, decided, we all ask that question, what would you do if you could do it for free? Well, I asked myself that question. I just always have to see what he's tearing up because I'm never going to see it again. What would I do if I could do it for free? And it was write. I love writing.
Wow.
And so it's like, well, I got to write about something. And I had explored dermatology as a consumer during the pandemic. And so this time I'm coming back to it as a clinician, right? So then I was like, well, I need to get some education and training because we don't get it in school. And so now I'm on the internet trying to find opportunities for education and training. I start to see these price tags for these education and training opportunities. So then my mind shifted to entrepreneur. And it's like, wow, look at what they're getting on the other end. And yeah, that's where I've been ever since. And so one of the opportunities that I found was through an organization called Diversity in Dermatology. I went on their blog to see what they talk about and who they talk to, because not all opportunities in dermatology are actually NPPA friendly. And so I went on their blog, like a lot of organizations. It hadn't been updated since the pandemic, right? Those pandemic projects. And so I emailed them, see if they needed an author for their blog. They said they did. So I came on as the blog chair. And then because everything was going so fast and I needed so much other help, I ended up helping more with social media. So now I'm actually the social media chair. Through that, started my own blog, started writing and documenting my journey on the blog and on social media. So now I'm learning these tools. And that helped me. So when she said, hey, do you know these skills for social media? Actually, I do. I've kind of been playing around with them for the last few months, because when you start getting into entrepreneurship, they tell you have to have social media presence. You need to start telling your journey so people will care about what it is you want to sell.
Yep.
Now, I thought it was going to be a quick journey, and here we are about 2 years later, right? Because that's the reality. But man, so much has happened in these 2 years. I could not even begin to tell you. And social media has a lot to do with that. Right before I ended the contract for travel nursing, I was taking care of a gentleman in his 60s, Black guy. He had just got a catheter placed for dialysis. And he told me, this is one of my greatest fears in life, to go on dialysis. And I thought, well, that's an interesting fear. You hear, sharks, snakes, heights, water, but dialysis? First time I ever heard that. But I do understand, after being in healthcare, that once we diagnose you with something, especially like high blood pressure, we tell you, if you don't make these changes, this is going to be in your future. So I understood how he got there. It just was an unusual conversation. So as the night went on, shout out to all my night nurses, I learned that he had first started cutting his pills in half and eventually just stopped taking them altogether because he ran out of insurance. And so I just asked him, what is high blood pressure? And he couldn't tell me. He said, you know what, that's a good answer. That's a good question. And I'm thinking, well, man, had this guy known this thing called blood pressure and the relationship between that and his greatest fear in life, maybe we wouldn't be here. And for some reason, I just started thinking, where do people learn about healthcare? And then it started making me think about this whole financial literacy thing that everyone has kind of gotten into too, because we realized we didn't learn that either in school. Most of our parents weren't really that well equipped. And we tell you not to trust Dr. Google. In our little 15, 20-minute visit as your provider, even I don't have time to tell you. All I do is say, hey, look, you've got high blood pressure. If you come back next year when I see you and you still have it, I'm going to have to put you on some medicine. But I never stopped to actually tell you what this hypertension is, which I'm on a mission to stop using the word hypertension because it's a false impression to patients. And so they really don't have a good understanding of what we're even saying. And so I started the Melanin Initiative podcast, which you've been so kind to be the star of one of our series, Becoming Doctor of Nursing Practice. And the whole idea behind that is because we have this DMP degree and it has brought up a lot of questions. People want to know, what's the utility of it? What is it going to do for me? How much am I going to get paid? And patients are confused by the title, don't use it. And so just like we do in healthcare with so many complicated diseases and treatment options and prognoses, we do what nurses do best, and we educate the public on it. And so by sharing your journey, by you coming on every semester, we're able to showcase what it means to become a doctor of nursing practice and to see what you can do with it.
You said so much, and I've been taking notes over here. You just talked about your whole premise was on entrepreneurship, right? How you got to where you are. You're hosting a podcast, you're writing blogs through your company for another company, you're a NP now working for yourself. But one of the things that you talked about is a DNP. We use the term DNP and we're great. Nurses, healthcare, we're great for throwing some initials at something. You said doctoral prepared nurse, nursing practice, but I think people get confused. If you're a DNP or a doctoral prepared nurse, are you a nurse practitioner? Are you a nurse?
I am, yes, but you don't
But
have
is every DNP nurse a nurse practitioner?
No, you don't have to. No. There's different tracks.
And I think that's important. When we talk about education, growth, leadership, some people may want to leave the bedside, move into leadership, and they think that if I become a DNP, I will be a nurse practitioner. So those are two different pathways, two different tracks, you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Yep, you can do executive leadership, and we were in the same class.
Yeah.
So even though it's kind of like based on your master's, right? So your master's is really where you get either that NP or that executive leadership, whatever you've decided to do. And at the doctorate level, you're just kind of expounding on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever your project is, you probably are focusing more either in the patient care realm or the leadership realm. But at the end of the day, we end up with the same doctorate degree.
Interesting. And, I know it, right? I'm working on my doctoral degree and, I say DNP and people automatically assume I'm going to be an NP. And I say, no, I'm not a provider at all. I don't treat patients in that sense. I'm not a nurse practitioner. So I have to clear that up as I'm educating the world, the community on what a DNP is. Because as you know, a DNP degree is a relatively new degree comparative to our PhDs and other doctoral degrees that are out there. And for me, I wanted to get my DNP to continue to exude excellence. I am a nurse leader. I am a healthcare leader. And I think that if I want to be at the head of the table, sitting at the table, not on the table, I have to come to the table with a terminal degree.
I just got what you said there.
What?
Not like a patient.
So, I think that when we talk about leadership, and you're a nurse, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Sometimes nurses want to leave the bedside. Do they have to have a BSN or MSN or DNP to leave the bedside? Or can they go into entrepreneurship as you did without those advanced degrees?
They can. And I think I love what you're doing. And I love that we get to showcase your story, because so much of our academic training is focused on that direct patient care. And it gives the student a false impression that that's all we can do. And so I've kind of come to realize that lately, right? And I think maybe we do students a disservice by not telling them that nursing school is only a small picture of what they can do, and that nursing school doesn't teach them everything that they need to know, and it's not going to expose them to everything. And so in all those rotations and opportunities for precepting and orienting, we don't see leadership. Our only leadership example is the professor. And so oftentimes the only thing you hear is I either want to be an NP or a professor. Just like kids want to be actors and sports athletes, because that's all they see. So that's one of the things we're trying to do at the Mellon Initiative, is not only increase health literacy amongst the public, but also bring an awareness to all the opportunities in healthcare. Because we all are told about being a nurse or a doctor when we're a kid, and those are great professions. Obviously, I'm quite biased. But once we get in, we realize there's a million ways to help people, because that's what people will say. Why do you want to do this? Oh, I want to help people.
Yeah.
There's a million people helping us to run this industry. And the other thing I like to make a distinction between is the profession is nursing. The profession is physician, but the industry is healthcare.
Ooh.
And a lot of times people don't understand what they're getting into. And when you see people leaving in droves in industry, you need to have a better understanding of what it is you're agreeing to.
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? You say the industry is healthcare. And when we talk about leadership in healthcare, there's various facets. They're very dynamic, various dynamics of leadership in healthcare, right? You can be a supervisor, manager, director, executive. There's various facets to it. Now, we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I want to know, what is your definition of leadership?
Oh man. And so we get this question. I don't know what class it was, but you're asked to distinguish the difference between leader and manager. And so
Ooh.
for me, the manager is that task oriented person. They have a checklist. Nurses love checklists.
No.
And we're going to check them off every day. It's about those operations, those daily operations. Whereas the leader is really there to be a visionary, to identify the strengths in the people on the team, to elevate those people. If you don't work over here, let's talk about where you can work. You don't necessarily need to leave the team. We just need to better position you. And so it's not about micromanagement or telling you what to do. It's about elevating you and helping you identify where you're best suited and help you really execute that at the highest level.
You said something that's a trigger word for me, and it's a trigger word for many reasons, and it's called micromanagement, because I think it's overused so much. And I used to use the term micromanage, but when I got to Hawaii, I like to say I studied under, but I worked under a gentleman. His name is Brian Cunningham. He was the CEO of the hospital that I worked at. And he said, it's interesting, when people don't like what you're saying, they call it micromanagement. When you're working with people and they really don't like what you're saying, they call it micromanagement. He said, when you take away the job aspect of it, any other field is called coaching. He said, LeBron got a coach.
So
Kobe had a coach.
when I was just talking, I was going to use the word coach, like finding your strengths, putting you in the right position. And I say that right now. I say, if your favorite athlete needs a coach, why don't you need a coach?
Yes.
But we
Yes.
think that in nursing, we really think that because as we've talked before in one of your episodes, so much of our training, even though we tell you we're going to support you, we're going to be there for you, we also tell you that, well, you still need to know on your own because everyone else might be busy and they might not be able to help you. As you shared on your episode, your first day off orientation. And so many of us have those stories. And so nurses end up working in silos.
Yes.
Suffering in silence. And we continue that throughout the rest of our journey, unfortunately. But you and all of our community, we're really trying to change a lot of that, right? Because if there's 5 million of us, there's no way we should be silent. There's no way we should be invisible. And there's no reason for us to suffer and work alone and struggle.
But you know what? It happens, and it continues to happen. And I think it's because, and I'm a millennial, full transparency, and I watch these different podcasts and these different TikToks, and I'm all for it. When they talk about pay transparency and all of this, I think, I know growing up in my family, you're told not to talk about certain things in the workplace. So what do? We kind of keep it in. And I'm a millennial, right? So I've never been one to shy about pay and things like that. I know a lot of people are like, I don't talk about it, but we can't grow as a field of clinicians, as a field in general, if we're afraid to talk and speak and be open. That's just my perception. I don't know if you share that same thing, but we're limited to our growth if we are not talking to other people and seeing what's happening with other people. And I think that's how we get to pay disparities, especially with between genders, right? People are afraid to talk. I'm making $1, but you're making 60 cents to do the same job. Is that fair? I don't want to get into the weeds, but I think if we were open about what's going on at the job environment, potentially we could see some improvements in our field of nursing. Hey, did you hit that like button yet? That subscribe button yet? What if you didn't hit it? That's how I get views. I need the views. Sound Leadership with DJ invites you to like and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't, hit that bell, hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified of every single episode that we host here on Sound Leadership with DJ. Have you done it yet? All right, now back to this episode. Definitely can. So you are a DNP prepared nurse. You started a group Can you talk to me about that? What led you to kind of start that? Obviously, your goal is to inspire the next generation of nurses, but really, I was on your site today and I saw the different blogs. Obviously, you love writing, but what really made you put pen to paper to make that happen?
I think, well, which one, the group or the writing?
So the group.
Okay, so the group I think you're referring to is the DMV Dermatology MPPA group.
Yes.
So two things happened. So I was on my travel assignment in Colorado Springs, and I met one of our fellow DMP. Like, there is not a conversation that doesn't go by where we don't mention DMPs of color. Okay.
Hey, shout out to Danielle.
DMPs
Can't
are
wait to meet you in October.
and everyone's supporting her, right? Because she's a representation of the team, right? Thank God and thank her that she is allowing the team to come in and take over so she can breathe, right? An example of leadership, right?
Yes.
Visionary leadership. And so anyway, I joined the research committee for DMPs of color. We have several committees. One of them is the research committee where we're going to have our own journal. And so I think it was our very first meeting and everyone just saying their name, where they're from. And a lady on there by the name of Dr. Patrice Kiesling, I don't want to mess up her last name. She's like, yeah, I'm in Colorado Springs. And I said, me too. And so we had to meet, and we went hiking, and she told me that she started this Facebook page for NPs and I could get on there. Right now, they're over 800 people on there. They post every single day. The best part to me is two things. They talk about professional things and entrepreneurial things. Like, that's welcome. And they meet in person, right? So I was so inspired by that. While I was there, they didn't have their in-person meeting because it was like the summer break. But I just thought, oh, what a nice opportunity, right? Beautiful. Then I went to the Sunrise Dermatology Conference in Florida, and everyone kept saying, oh, you traveled so far to be here, far from Northern Virginia, which I don't think. But everyone there is from Florida, so they see each other all the time. And again, I thought, oh, this is so nice. They get to see each other all the time. So then I took that experience from what Dr. Patrice said and what I saw in Sunrise Dermatology Conference with Dr. Patricia Delgado, and I started the DMV Dermatology Group, which is a private member-only Facebook page for NPs and PAs practicing and living in DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We have a small group right now. We just started in October, but we've had so much people reach out and want to support and help us grow the group, so that we have our first in-person meeting scheduled on July 27th, right here in National Harbor. And I'm just so grateful to them, because I was just going to be the patient game, wait till we got to 100 people and then start saying, hey, let's see if we can get together and do something. But yeah, when you have people willing to help you, I'm just going to take advantage of that opportunity and see if that can help bring us together.
And you know what, you and Dr. McCamey, are examples of visionary leadership, right? Mm-hmm. You saw a need and you are helping fill that need to gather like-minded individuals to better, not only your situation, but the ultimate goal, I'm sure, is to better quality outcomes and better the outcomes for the patients that you serve. And that's an example of leadership. And so I want to clap for you right now and let you know, kudos to you and kudos for what you're doing. But I'm sure you didn't become this overnight visionary leader overnight. So talk to us about your leadership journey. Maybe go back to one of your first leadership roles and then kind of to where you are here and talk about that evolution to this doctoral prepared nurse I see right in front of me.
Yes, thank you. It's funny because when you said, do you want to talk about leadership? I was like, what am I going to talk about?
Look at you killing it like you always do.
So I think if I'm going to talk about my experience with leadership, I'll have to go back to the church. I grew up in the church.
Yes.
And we were part of different ministries, including the usher ministry, young women. And I think the first time I kind of took like a leadership role, if you will, is when I started working with the Sunday school. So that would be probably my first kind of leadership opportunity. And then, so then we can jump all the way to when I was a nurse at the bedside. And I used to ask a lot of questions. If anybody knows me, I ask a lot of questions. Okay. When I was in college, I was part of a co-ed fraternity, and they just had like an interest table. I went up to the table. I was asking about them. I probably got to 20 questions, and they were like, look, just join. And so my nickname was Q&A, if that tells you about me. Okay. I asked a lot of questions. And so I was going to my nurse educator and manager, and I was asking questions all the time. And they were like, oh, you know what you should do? You should bring back our practice council. We used to have one, but so-and-so left. And so, yeah, you should bring it back. And so it was another nurse that we were really close. And I said, hey, you want to do this thing with me? So we were co-chairs for it. So that would probably be the next time where I really, especially in nursing, where I really was kind of in a leadership position. And then we needed someone to represent our unit at the hospital council. So then I became that person too. And then,
I was going to say, throughout that process, was there something that shaped and molded your leadership principles that you have today? You know, I always talk about, you know, my 8th grade school year, right? When my teacher told me by the time I was 18, I'll be dead or in somebody's penitentiary. Shout out to the teacher, math teacher at Longfellow Middle School. You know, I don't say her name, but, you know, she knows who she was. But that shaped and molded me because I used that fuel to move myself forward. And I used that example to show what a bad leader can do and how they can scar you. I'm 35 and I'm still talking about something that happened when I was 13. 8th grade, right? But that was a leader. And she talked down to me in no other way. You know, your teacher is like the pastor. You hold them in the highest regard. You have the most respect for them. And this teacher told me I was going to be dead or in somebody's penitentiary by the time I was 18. So I hold on to that. And as a leader, I tell people this is an example of what not to do as a leader. So is there something that you've kind of learned over time throughout your time, whether it's in church or going on as a nurse, right? I'm sure as a nurse, tell me I'm wrong, stop me when I'm wrong. At some point, they threw you into a charge nurse position with no training.
Well, so shout out to where I work. They did offer training. But you know what? You mentioned something just now, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention where I developed these leadership skills, because I was born in Beaufort, South Carolina, while my dad was a drill instructor on Parris Island. Okay. Woo. I grew up in a military, not just a military house, a Marine.
That's why you asked all them questions.
A Marine Corps house, right? And while he was doing that, so through my childhood, he was doing that. My mom used to work in a prison, and wow, lots of leadership is happening there. And then she became a minister, right? So lots of examples of how to have integrity, how to care for people, and how to not only understand what it is you're trying to lead people towards, but to live that and to continue to be curious and learn and humble and to realize that you can't do it on your own. So shout out to them, because I think all those leadership skills came from them. And being the oldest, which I absolutely hated. I hated being the oldest. I always wanted an older brother, but that didn't happen, right?
So you were a natural leader. You were the oldest. You were leading.
I was forced to lead.
Yeah.
So to me, really, that's where it started, even though I didn't want it.
But you know what? Sometimes that's how it has to be, right? You have to cut your teeth on something. And as you said, you didn't, but I'm sure over time, right? You, even now, right? You've learned to kind of step aside when you don't need to be a leader and let others lead, I'm sure.
Easily, quickly. Give it a try. I'll help you.
Because leadership is not all about standing out front and waving your flag like you the winner, like you did it all. I think where some leaders fail is they don't know how to sit back. We've all worked for the leaders who got to take the credit for everything, except for when it goes bad.
Oh, well, there goes the healthcare conversation.
So, I think that, as a leader, it's important for us to propel and move the next generation forward. And as you spoke about earlier in the podcast, finding that person's strengths. I think as leaders, what I see often is sometimes we can be quick to terminate instead of to educate. We need to educate and train. How many times you've seen that where it's, well, it wasn't working out, so we just terminated them. Well, maybe we need to get to the root cause of why so-and-so is not performing in this role. Maybe that's just not their role. A lot of times we hire people and we put them where we need them, but it's not their strength and their strong suit. And it's a failure, I believe, on us as leaders to really evaluate the team that we have and to uplift them and play to their strong suits. I really think that that's something. So you're working as a derm NP now, is that correct?
No, right now I work in wounds.
Okay.
But when I'm not in wounds, I'm all about derm, trying to build my own derm practice. I'm writing my first dermatology book. I thought I might be able to make that announcement today during this interview, which is why I prolonged it.
Ooh, listen, so now I got to really edit this and get this out soon.
Because at first it was going to be an ebook, but
Yeah.
now it's not. It's going to be an actual hard copy book because I put a lot of time and energy into it.
I love
And so, yeah, so my journey is about, that aspiring derm NP who's trying to get in. And because we don't get education in derm as nurses, and like me, many nurse practitioners go to apply for their first job in derm and find out that you don't meet the qualifications because the qualifications are derm. They literally don't care at all about your 10 years in healthcare. They only care about derm, right? Which is a real shocker. And a lot of times they're looking for you to have 2 to 3 years of experience. So if you're applying today, you will not be a candidate next month. Like you still have 2 to 3 years ahead of you. And so I'm out here to try to help people. And in my journey to get there, I've now learned so much about the industry, so much about all the other opportunities. So in this, what I told you, since I started the blog, it's been a year and a half. Since then, became the blog chair, the social media chair. Now I'm a new peer reviewer for the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology. I am an author. I'm on the author committee for the Journal of Dermatology Nurses Association, which is the first and largest organization dedicated to education for nurses and nurse practitioners. Yeah, and so now the opportunities are really, and I started this group, right, which is a Facebook group, but in my head, this is just the beginning of that. And so, so much of what we talked about earlier, we don't get that exposure to leadership in school. We also don't get exposure to these other ways you can practice a specialty, right? And so that's what I'm learning now, are all the other opportunities. And so for me, learning about how to help people get in, the research, the education, because as clinicians, we are so busy. If I'm seeing 30 to 40 patients a day, I do not have time to keep up with the literature. I do not know what is available. I do not know about the opportunities. And if I jump in that same wheel with you, I won't know you more either. But if I stay on the sideline, I can still be active. I can still be engaged. I can still break it down so you can read this little article while you're on the toilet, while the light's turning red, while you're waiting in the grocery line. You can get the information. You can be aware. I can offer the mentorship, because it's just like parents. If you go and have your own family, you're that less available for your community. But if you don't have your own family, now you're the village who can offer support. And everyone in the village plays a role. Not everyone needs to play the same role. And that's something that I realized throughout my journey.
Yeah.
We all start off the same because we're all socialized the same way, that you should follow this path. In every area of my life, whether it's personal or professional, has been untraditional. It's not because I planned it that way. That's just the way that it's gone. So now my perspective has changed on how we think about what the options are and what it means to practice, to be a nurse, to be a person.
It's interesting. One of the things that you said while you were speaking is you can't break in. And I want to say this for the people who are holding these HR director positions, these HR manager positions. You need to give people a shot. You got to give people a shot, because how are people ever going to gain the experience? You have nurses who come out of school who can't land a position because they don't have the experience. Well, however are they supposed to gain the experience if no one will give it to them? You have people who are coming out with different degrees, whether it's bachelor's, teacher's degree, and as you said, they go up against the same thing where you have to have 2 or 3 years of experience. Well, somebody had to give you a shot. Somebody believed in whoever the hiring manager is and said, I'm going to give you a shot. So sometimes we have to, as a hiring manager, as a leader, give other people a shot. We can't, if we're sitting around as leaders waiting for the perfect candidate, they don't exist. And frankly, when we're applying the jobs and we have all the skills and we checking all the check boxes, no, they're not going to call you either. You're a DNP prepared nurse and you check every box they're not going to call you, because what they're going to say is now you're overqualified. So it's interesting as I go through leadership and I work with leaders on hiring practices and how to change their culture and things like that. I'm working with them on the basics of hiring, finding the right candidate, and giving people a chance and a shot. To your point, everybody's not you. So if we're trying to hire another us, what are we really doing? Is that really leadership, trying to hire another us or another like me? No. So I thank you for bringing it out, and I look forward to bring you back on once your book is launched. Look forward to reading your book. Look, she dropped it here. I got to drop some captions there. I'm really excited for what you have going on. I've watched you. I continue to be a fan, continue to be a supporter of what you have going on, continue to like and share your podcasts. And as we bring this to a close, I want people to be able to connect with you. So drop those podcasts again, drop your handles again, your group, all of that stuff. It will be in the bio, but we want to hear from you.
Yeah, certainly. So just one last point about dermatology. So yeah, there are ways to get experience. There are ways to get training and education. And those are the things I go over in the book, which is how to get your first job as a dermatology nurse practitioner. So you don't have to Google your life away. I put it all in one book because you're busy. You're seeing 30 plus patients a day. You're coming home trying to raise your family, trying to pray, trying to work out, trying to meditate, trying to get 8 hours of sleep. So look, I'm here to help you make your life.
8 hours of sleep?
That's what those people who don't do business do, who aren't in entrepreneurship. Yeah, they say they get 8 hours of sleep. I'm just like, wow. That's like 2 of my nights in one. That's like 2 of my nights in your one night. No, but I'm loving it here, and I'm not mad about it. And the thing is, even though my initial goal was to get that first job, I'm coming back to what that first thing I said I want to do, which is writing. And it's so funny. You think you have a plan, and I wrote out a 10-year plan. I have a 10-year plan that I'm working, right? But it's so funny how the longer it takes, it brings me back to that first question I asked myself. What would you do if you could do it for free? And so every time I stay in that circle and not look out what everyone else is doing, how they're doing it, I keep coming back to this. And the opportunities keep bringing me back to the writing. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk to you, talk about leadership, to elevate the platform of graduate education, what it means to be a nurse, what it means to be a doctoratorily prepared nurse. It's not about what it's going to do for you. It's about what you're going to do with it. That's the difference between doctoral education as opposed to the other levels of education. So at the bachelor's level, they tell you how to think. At the master's level, we want to know what you think. But at the doctor's level, you become the they. And so for everyone wanting to know what you do with a doctorate degree as a nurse, that question is for you to answer. And I'm here for mentorship. I welcome it. The best way to find me is on the Mahogany Dermatology blog. That's every day. You can find me there. And then, of course, you can find us right now. We're in season 3, and we change our schedule. So we release new episodes Sundays at noon Eastern on YouTube and all your favorite podcast app. When you get there, leave a message in the comments. Let us know. Subscribe. It lets YouTube and the algorithm know that our information is important, and it'll make sure people just like you get exposed to that information. Shout out to Alicia and Geraldine. I am not a one-woman show. That I'm one of the co-hosts, and they bring excellent insight, expertise. They are dominating their fields right now, winning awards. They're killing it. So shout out I wouldn't be doing it without them.
Listen, but you know what? You have
a store coming soon.
So for the people who can't see this, what did you just hold up?
Oh, our new logo for our shirt, the Melanin Initiative podcast. We're going to have a merch store soon. So make sure you subscribe, follow on we're on every social media platform. Thanks to our sound leadership over here with DJ. So whatever platform you like, you'll find us there. And when the merch store opens, you'll be able to support us through that. We're also opening a Patreon store because we want to be in the community. We want to go to schools and teach students about the importance of primary care, students and the faculty, about the importance of primary care and how to measure blood pressure. This whole thing started with blood pressure. We would be remiss if we didn't use that, right? And so we want to Start off by getting enough funds to purchase 25 blood pressure monitors, go into the schools, teach students and faculty how to measure blood pressure accurately and what to do with the numbers, particularly when they're out of range.
Listen, that's leadership. And that's the purpose of this podcast. That is leadership, because here's the deal. You want to get 25 blood pressure cuffs to go into schools. You're going to be blessed with a lot more than that. What you're doing is saving a generation. I don't know if you, I mean, I know you know, but what you just said is saving a generation. You're getting to them young. You started this podcast talking about a gentleman that you were taking care of that was older.
Yeah.
Who was on dialysis. It was no saving. It's very rare that you're going to come off dialysis. Miracles happen. You get a kidney. Things happen. But what you're doing now is getting to them young. I'm sure you're going to be teaching them about diet education, low sodium diets, not the fast food, not the Lunchables that they got going on, and all this other stuff that we eat that's not good for us. So you're saving a whole generation moving forward. And I commend you and your team for doing that. That's huge.
Thank you.
I don't know if you thought of it like that.
I didn't think of it like that, but thank you. God sends you people to help you think of it like that.
Listen, you're winning out here. Your team is winning. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to meet you in October.
Oh, yeah.
I am excited to be at the DMPs of Color Conference, where like-minded leaders will be in the same room, sharing leadership, sharing their tips on education, entrepreneurship, and so much more. So if you're in Philly in October, please stop by. You can meet your host here, DJ from Sound Leadership with DJ. I get in, and I am there just to meet like-minded people. So thank you today for coming on this podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's been a joy.
Yes. And, to the community out there, thank you for embarking on this leadership journey with us. Today's episode has been filled with insights, inspiration, and wisdom from Dr. Madison. If today's conversation sparked a new idea, inspired action, or simply left you wanting more, we invite you to connect with us. Explore more of our world by following us on YouTube and LinkedIn at Sound Leadership with DJ, where the conversation continues. Don't let the journey stop there. I want you to subscribe to us on all your favorite platforms. We're talking about Apple Music, Alexa, iHeart, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button. As we part ways today, remember, leadership is a journey, not a destination. Keep striving to learn and grow, and never give up on your goals. We're honored to be a part of your leadership voyage and eagerly anticipate welcoming you back for more enriching dialogue and transformational insights here on Sound Leadership with DJ. Until next time, I want you to remember this. Keep leading, keep growing, and remember, within Sound Leadership with DJ, you're always in good company.
Thanks for tuning into Sound Leadership with DJ. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. Share your favorite takeaways with a friend or colleague. Leave a review and let us know what you think. And remember, leadership is not just a title, it's a choice. Choose to lead with purpose, passion, and impact. See you on the next episode.